Wow, what a teaser. I am feeling pretty great about this part three film. Maybe it's partial bias because I feel like a lot of what I've been expecting is basically confirmed. I mean, look, if you're a Messiah purist, you're in a losing battle at this point. Just come to the dark side, we have spice. No, but I do think this is the perfect mix of showing us with a capital S what we can look forward to, while still holding a ton of mystery and only teasing us on what's headed our way. What's that thing that Aaliyah said in part two? You are not prepared for what is to come. Let's just jump in frame by frame and warning some absolute and some likely spoilers for Dune Part 3. Our opening shot is Paul reflecting on his reflection. Not sure if this is a particular sacred pool of water or just this dirty sink for shaving, but important to note how water is being wasted now. We're in times of abundance. And it is intercut with this deceptively placed flashback. We're jumping around in time quite a bit, so we have what seems to be during part two, shortly after part two, and then the general 15 to 20 years later in part three. We'll speak on each of these more specifically when we reach each point in the trailer. But this to me is so clearly something during part two. We know Chani was wearing the Nizoni in the middle of the film. There is the chance this could be very soon after part two. Chani has a bit of a resigned feeling to her. As well, it looks like her makeup is done slash hair is done, which wasn't a super focus for them at the time of part two, being that they were hiding and rebelling. So they could be on a honeymoon post part two. However, Dune Part 2 ends on such a strong note of Chani's disappointment and the crusade beginning. I kind of imagine that day being from that point on a non-stop joyless ride. Again, notice how this scene is intercut with Paul shaving his head and reflecting. This is clearly just a memory of happier times. They're deciding child names and they name drop Ganima and Leto. I'd love to get more of these flashbacks to flesh out Paul and Chani's love. I personally did not feel like they had this inseparable and interlocked, destined romance throughout or by the end of part two. That could totally be because of the actors' chemistry or maybe the timeline of how the film unfolds. But for this story to work, we really have to believe there was a loss beyond them just telling us we should know that. Notice how this is the only shot we see of Chani throughout the teaser until the end. That's very purposeful editing to reduce future Chani's presence. Aside from this scene, her being pregnant was not a major factor throughout the rest of the trailer. Other shots we got in this mix are, I believe, Chani gliding into the desert, then Zendaya in a perfume ad, Chani in a vision. Interesting, we've seen this reoccurring dream for Paul, and usually Chani has this haunting questionability about her, like she could jump out and kill Paul. But here, he's dreaming of her happy and possibly being happy with her, which is an interesting flip of the situation. There's the slightest chance this scene takes place in real life, and this is during that honeymoon sequence. Next, we see the Atreides troops unloading from a warship, getting ready to charge into battle. Then someone is handing someone else Leto's ducal signet. Is this their teenage son Leto receiving it? And is this teenage Ganima gliding in? Next, we see Paul with a head full of hair arising from a scorched battle. I'm so happy, as demented as that sounds. As I've stated, this film needed to be anchored in the brutality and gruesomeness of the Holy War. Also, make note of the updated Fedaykin armor. It could potentially be changing planet to planet, but whatever the case, it is not the traditional Fremen garb. I think this is obviously because still suits aren't needed on the other planets, but also to differentiate factions of the Fremen. Then the chanting begins, Paul and Aaliyah in unison preparing for battle. Look at that consequence. Paul says in this trailer, war feeds upon itself. We get some beautiful on-the-ground action. God, I sound like I work for Raytheon, but this violence seems so unending and ugly, which is perfect. No glorification happening here. This ship looks like the ones we saw at the end of part 2 getting ready to unleash wrath upon the universe. It's leaving a blue planet. I wonder if this is the changed Arrakis, or if it's just another planet, potentially Kitane or Caladan. Approaching one of the space-folding highliners, very excited to see the guild navigators finally. We get Paul in a terrible wig speaking with Jessica. I wonder if this is a reshoot. The wig looks horrible. But he's seeking her counsel, and this seems directly after part 2 or in the immediate years following it. Jessica has barely aged, although this is a hard indicator of time passage, as the Bene Gesserit do possess the ability to slow down their aging as they have absolute mastery of their bodies. Maybe he calls her in from Caladan for advice. Although this is great, as the trailer reassures me she doesn't have too grand of a role, and she seems to be calming down off of her plotting shit from the second film. Blame it on the fetus Alia, it was all her fault. We only see medium close-ups in this scene though, so we can't tell if Lady Jessica is pregnant or not, giving us an accurate idea of where this takes place in the timeline. I'm having trouble with the hair. I can't totally tell that the hair is only relegated to the past sequences. I think to really delineate the timelines, as I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of intercutting, we'll start at the 20 years later point with Paul shaving his head. Then we see a meeting of the Bene Gesserit and Arulan arriving. This looks like the opening chapter of Messiah between the conspirators against Paul. Arulan is not face painted up in this sequence, so my speculation off of the character posters could be wrong, but I'm willing to be a madman and go all the way with that idea that Paul eventually starts treating her as a pet or jester. Maybe she sloppily fumbles and he finds out that she's been plotting against him, and it's like, okay, you know what, now it's time to go put some face paint on. It is such a weird take, but whatever, sue me. Then we see our first good look at Seidel bringing the Trojan horse of height or hate. Unfortunately, he is albino. No offense to the albino community. In fact, I am just tired of seeing the trope of the albino villain, particularly because it's not far off from the Harkonnen aesthetic. I don't recall his book description. Maybe this is accurate to the T, but with how much is being changed in this film and how much was changed about the Harkonnens, they could have done whatever they wanted with this character aesthetically. And I just find the albino thing as being lazy. We see more levitating, which is the most magical sequence out of Dune Part 2. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The weightless levitating is actually Dune's version of the lightsaber. It's so iconic. We see a brief shot of Aaliyah moving through some sort of caverns or whatever. Then we see Paul's troops versus another faction of the universe, one clearly inspired by the samurai's Japanese feudal aesthetic. Looking forward to seeing more cultures in the Dune universe. This could be connected to the battle we see earlier. I just hope all the battles don't take place on a sort of soundstage foggy void landscape. But here we get our first look at Stilgar cutting down an enemy troop. Again, take note of the new Fedaykin armor. Then, very much the best shot of the whole trailer, Saint Alia giving a sermon to the Iraqi square. This is so fucking cool. The beauty of those fabrics moving in the air, she looks alien and angelic. Again, I would be pledging allegiance to the Lisan al-Gaib. Here we get some monk-looking individuals. Because of the main extra we see being Caucasian, I believe this is a conquered planet who has now fallen in line with the regime. It could also just be a peaceful planet that the Atreides troops come to and they still kill and conquer because they refuse to kneel to Paul's right as a god figure. Would be an interesting way to show the depravity and uncontrollable nature of this crusade. Next, a shot of the Atreides troops carrying a payload or bomb. It's edited to look like they have the gift box Hate comes in, which we see next. I think this is from the creation of Hate, potentially a reverse shot motion-wise. The tech and outlining on the walls does not look Fremen based. A wonderful shot of Alia, loving the black. She strikes a fierce silhouette here. Okay, the first time we see Chani in present day. Notice she is not pregnant. However, she looks very weathered and she's wearing the old still suit. But I will concede she has no filt tube here. Now in the royal court, I believe this is the scene where Hate is gifted to the Atreides. What a funny sentence. We see the same circular motif in the shot of Seidel. We know Alia sometimes presides over the royal throne. We can see some Bene Gesserits, potentially Alia's Amazonian guards. With the folding in of the Children of Dune material, it's hard to tell with a scene like this exactly. Then we get a nice sparring between old friends Hate and Paul. I think his eyes look rather good here when they catch the right light. Another shot of Arulan. I can't tell if she's shaved off her hair or if it's just pulled back. Then we have Seidel amongst some traditional looking Fremen. Remember, Zendaya and Robert Pattinson have said they have a scene together. Do they potentially shake hands in an enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of way? Seidel's got the filt tube though, he's not playing around. A good look at Chani's older, weathered face. Very stark difference from that flashback we see early on. A look at the stone burner attack, very cool. Which, if you know, you know, I'll leave it at that. Paul addresses his legions of followers, And look how much this thing has spread. There's just no turning back. Here we can see a good look at his face. His eyes are not scarred here, which is something I was wondering and speculating off of the character posters released yesterday. If the scarring was from the stone burner or just weathering from battle we'd see throughout the film. Luckily, it just seems that that was for the purposes of an editorial choice, and that's not how he's going to look throughout the film. And we will get a proper execution of the stone burner sequence. Okay, then there's this hand holding a crysknife and wearing a Nozoni wrapped around its wrist. It seems this is Chani on a sandworm about to attack these other Fremen. They're all on the sandworm but staring each other down. That'll be a cool sequence, a fight on a sandworm. But why are they fighting? I can't make out if those are Paul's troops. Maybe they aren't fighting and they're all heading into battle together. Although, why are they staring each other down, gunslinger style? Chani's standing there, no protection eyewear, just freeballing it, ready to fuck some shit up. It does not seem like she's been having a great time, guys. Lastly, Charlotte Rampling, our Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohim, gets a name drop at the end, which is wonderful. I was wondering why Jessica got a character poster over her, but good to see they're still factoring her into the story. Overall, I think this looks phenomenal. I'm very curious of everyone else's take, especially those who are absolute book purists. This franchise has such goodwill and a decent enough fan base that extends beyond the books. A one-to-one adaptation of Messiah would be a hard sell. I'm worried about the Children of Dune elements being folded in prematurely, but I'll just have to wait and see it unfold in the theater. It's out of our hands. Look, so long as they stick true to the core themes of Messiah, which it seems they're definitely doing, I'm down for whatever changes necessary to complete this adaptation. And I think, again, you just have to accept that this is the conclusion to this film series and not a copy and paste of the book. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, honestly, even if you didn't, share and leave a like. All engagement really helps boost the channel, and we're new here. Subscribe while you're at it to see more Dune 3 coverage, and in the coming weeks, I'm going to begin branching out to some other properties. It just so happened as I started posting, all of this Dune stuff was coming out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Theme Addict signing out.